it's your old pal Slim, and this is a special bonus episode of 70mm podcast for movie fans just like you. Disclaimer at the top of the show, we're not experts, okay? So buckle up, but we do love watching movies. With me in the studio is my close friend and artist, Danny Haas.
Hello.
And our close friend and movie insider, Proto.
To quote another auteur, you wouldn't get it.
This very special bonus episode is all about Megalopolis from Francis Ford Coppola, maybe the original master, the proto master, as our close friend has described him. And we'll also talk about our experience seeing it in IMAX. We saw it last night. So, I mean, really, we might be the first podcast recording an episode on Megalopolis. Have you thought about that, Danny? Was that in your head when you sent a DM? Yesterday, I mean, it might have even been yesterday. When are we recording our Megalopolis episode?
I just figured, since all three of us are seeing this the night at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
We should just fire up the mics and talk about it. Mm-hmm. It's a big deal. This hasn't been done since episode 1, people are saying.
Was that also an IMAX simulcast?
Phantom Menace.
Was that a simulcast at 8:30 p.m.?
Yeah.
Worldwide?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Proto, I feel like you were sitting down to watch this last night and the juices were pumping, if I can say that on a podcast. The juices were pumping, and you released a 20-minute UFO, which are essentially just Proto solo podcasts in a voice memos app in his car.
Yeah.
20-minute episode, maybe the longest ever pre and post Megalopolis. So I think you were ready for an episode, a full episode.
Yeah, I guess so. I was. Yeah, I couldn't believe I was at 20 minutes when that ended. But yeah, you know, I've upgraded my stream of consciousness. I think a little bit. My skill points have increased. Yeah, I was definitely on something last night, but it felt great. It felt great to get it out there and get my thoughts out there. I don't know how coherent I'll be now. I mean, how can anyone be coherent after Megalopolis? But we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. This is our first bonus episode on the main feed since Left Behind 2014. Remember the Nicolas Cage movie that we did for funsies? Nobody remembers that episode. I don't know if anyone listened to that one, but we had fun, folks, okay? That's all that matters on this podcast. Before we get into the synop from Proto, do we want to make this a semi-recurring segment? Top 3 Francis Ford Coppola movies. Pre-Megalopolis.
Oh, wow.
I like this
viewing. I was looking up his filmography earlier, but so maybe I'll start while you guys think about it.
Let's go.
I think I'd probably be, just keep in mind, we're not experts, okay? We're just movie lovers. Dracula would probably be in my top 3.
I can see that for you.
Oh, God. That is like my Megalopolis, Dracula. Highly recommend. Maybe we'll cover on this show one day. Who knows? But the audio commentary is one of my favorites, which in some ways is a prequel to what we saw last night in IMAX. His thoughts on making that movie. The Conversation, that's in there.
He brought that up last night too.
I didn't
in
hear
his
any
Q&A. Oh,
we'll get into it.
We'll get into
it. Great movie. Audio Catholic nerds rejoice. And then probably The Godfather, I think I'd probably put in the top 3. That's my top 3. So The Godfather, maybe not surprising. If I want to be crazy, maybe I'll put The Godfather Part 3 in the top 3.
That's a slim move. That's a slim move.
Because I think people need to cease the dumping on Part 3. Get over it. Okay?
Yeah.
Proto, what's your Mount Rushmore?
My Rushmore.
Cooked. He's cooked.
Definitely Apocalypse Now. I want to say, I think I'd go Godfather Part 2. You know, the Bobby De Niro performance in that still captures me. I mean, it came up in the Q&A, and we'll get into it later. Other movies. Apparently, he directed Jack. Yeah, with Robin Williams. That's not in my top 3. I guess my only other option really is The Conversation. And it feels too early to put Megalopolis in there, but it's a contender. All right, I'll say that now. It's a contender for me.
Yeah. We should say that, like, as of recording, the ratings have been revealed. Proto's
Correct.
review has dropped. I'm not going to say the rating. We'll get into it. Danny dropped something that I might have never seen before, a 2-star with a heart for Megalopolis.
We'll get into it.
And I hedged my bets. I was very brave and I didn't attach a rating to my diary entry.
You were the most bravest of all.
Reverse bravery.
It takes bravery to see a movie early and not attach a rating to it. You know, sometimes I just want people to feel, on their own. Don't let me guide your thinking, okay? I'm just going to talk about my experience at the theater, but we'll get into it in just mere moments. We'll get to the main discussion, use the chapters. I don't know if we'll put a chapter in this. Nobody uses the chapters. I saw another negative review on iTunes complaining about how much time we spent before the main discussion. So my theory is that literally no one on the planet knows what a podcast chapter is. What's the point anymore of me adding these damn chapters if no
That's true.
Neanderthals use them?
Just let the AI do it.
Yeah.
Danny, what's your top 3?
I would say number 1 is Godfather. I'm a part 1 fan. Even though part 2 is an absolute banger as well. Apocalypse Now is for sure. I would go The Outsiders for me. No, you know what? Scratch that. Captain EO.
Oh my God, I forgot about Captain EO.
Captain EO, top 3, Francis Ford Coppola's.
Captain EO episode when?
I'm waiting for a short films month. It'll be my pick.
Oh, why don't I see it on his filmography? Do I have a filter on or something?
I don't know. It's right there.
Where is it?
Down by Gardens of Stone and Who is the Terror?
Oh, there it is. How did I miss that poster? Good Lord.
Absolute banger poster. Yeah. For
Banging
me,
something.
Godfather, Apocalypse Now, Captain EO. Greatest things he's ever done.
Michael Jackson is wearing.
I
Angelica.
looked in getting that made for myself.
Oh my God. What if
I would finance that.
Do we need to do a fundraiser for you to have
dress
the
as
Captain
Captain EO?
EO? Actually, that's not on Etsy right now? You can't get a Captain
I'm sure
EO
it's on Etsy.
Etsy. I don't know.
The jacket alone.
Yeah, seriously.
It's got to light up.
All right. So Proto, this is the segment where we go into the movie discussion and we hear a Proto synopsis for Megalopolis for those listening. What's this movie all about?
Megalopolis set in somewhere, sometime in New Rome, which is basically New York City. The fall. It's the near distant future, maybe you could say, where it's been Romified. Everyone has Roman names. We got Caesar Catilian. Is that his name? Catalina. Caesar Catalina, played by Adam Driver. We've got Mayor Cicero. Crassus, the billionaire, played by John Voight. And then we have Wow Platinum. So we're having a good time in Megalopolis. And Caesar Catalina, he is a designer who's invented or discovered a material called megalon that allows structures to be built and it seemingly like indestructible, self-repairing, kind of like a utopia, a material that allows a utopia to be built. And he has ambitions to rebuild the city using this material into this future. But he's being fought by the mayor, who thinks of him as dangerous and destructive. And then there's the billionaire who's kind of hedging his bets and kind of playing his cards both ways. But Caesar gets involved with Julia, who is the mayor's daughter, and they get into a little romance. But after Wow Platinum, the star reporter of the city, breaks up with Caesar. So Caesar is really he's a complicated figure. He's involved with many women. He was accused of murdering his wife. He got off on that. So there's a storied history between all these characters. Yes, he did get off. Ultimately, though, we see Caesar's his dreams and his ambitions coming to fruition as the city is hit by well, spoiler. I won't get too far into the spoilers, I guess. I don't know. Are we spoiling things? Do we spoil things on this
heavy,
show?
Spoiler heavy episode.
The city gets partially destroyed, which allows him to start rebuilding the city into this future that is desired. And I guess that's it. That's all I got.
It's great. No, it's perfect.
Very deep description of the film in question, Megalopolis 2024. I was looking at his filmography after Jack, and what was it? I wrote it down here. Jack, 1996, The Rainmaker with Matt Damon in 1997. He didn't do another movie for a decade after that, Youth Without Youth. And then Tetro in 2009 and Twixt in 2011. And I think he started his his lucrative wine and resort business around this time frame. You know, he kind of like moved movie making into a hobby space for him because he didn't really like the process of making movies, you know, having to deal with financiers and all that kind of money to make art. So he, you know, when he made Godfather Part 3, I think he even said he was in like dire straits financially. He's like, I need to make Godfather 3 to just make money. And eventually he made some like really wise investments and didn't have to worry about making movies with like financiers or whatever. So when I was listening to the Dracula audio commentary, he talks about how like the process of making movies just kind of sucks ass and having to deal with people. So like over the last couple, you know, handful of years, he's talked about making Megalopolis with his own money because that's how much money they've made as a family of this business. So in many ways that like this is just like that piece of art that he's wanted to make without input from anyone else, for better or worse. So I tried to like frame my viewing in that way of seeing the movie, which is, you know, very different than how I would like think about watching any other movie from some director. So Danny, how were you like prepping yourself to see this movie? Did you watch the trailers? Were you kind of like reading up on the alleged scandal, all that stuff leading up to the release of this movie?
I mean, yeah, I was really excited about the trailers. I watched them a few times. I think I caught one in the theater at some point. I'm very pro Adam Driver. I want to see everything he's in anyway. So him being the lead in this film had me excited. And I love Francis. I mean, he's made some of the greatest films of all time. So not wanting to see this was like not an option, I feel like, especially when it comes to loving cinema. I had to pull it up some when you brought it up. He started his wine business in the 70s.
Really?
He applied for his wine license in 78. And then it wasn't until 2006 that they bought that chateau.
Oh.
Yeah, which is wild. He's been doing it for so long. Anyway, I was very excited about this film. And spoilers, I still had a good time, whether my 2-star and a heart matters. And then this scandal stuff, you know, it's hard to comment on it, but I feel like until...
Don't feel obligated to comment. Our legal team has advised us to not feel any obligation to comment.
No, I don't. It's just one of those things where I'm just like, well, when something legally happens, let's take action. Like if he's done stuff, then he should be legally tried for that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to, you know, hold judgment right away on him,
right,
etc.
I mean, often you're often talking about the woke mind virus.
Right. I'm sick of it.
That's a joke, folks. That's a joke. We're having laughs here.
Skip to the chapters.
Skip past. Let's talk about the woke mind virus chapter. You get right to the meat of the discussion. That's a joke. That's
anyway,
a joke.
I was very excited about this film, and I was happy to have gotten a press invite for it.
Proto, same question to you.
Yeah, I would say, like, I guess when it was announced, we saw like a poster or a teaser. I was like, you know, it's another movie. I try not to get like too invested when it's like that early on. But yeah, when the trailer came out for this, and then when I watched a few weeks ago, I watched the Hearts of Darkness documentary about Apocalypse Now and the making of that. It was so inspiring just to see his movie making process, his approach to making something, that how he pours himself, how he bets on himself, how I mean, that documentary is, I've said it before, but it's just so amazing, like how much you get to see, especially like the inner workings of his mind. And just, it seems like this is like the story of his career, right? He always bets on himself. He makes the movies that he wants to do. He finances them himself. So it's hard to not want to root for him and to like be, especially us, like, you know, we're watching a ton of movies. We're following directors. We're looking at what's coming up. And, you know, Francis is doing like kind of like what you want to see people do, where they're saying like, hey, this is art that I want to make. And, you know, money be damned, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And like, that's what you kind of want from artists. Like, that's the people you really respect. So it's like, yeah, I'm on board. I'm ready for this. I want to see what he brings to the table.
I mean, in many ways, we're the Francis Ford Coppola of podcasting.
Yes.
You know, we're betting on ourselves, making what we want to make.
Yeah, money be damned. I'll put out 20 minutes of me rambling in a car.
And while I was watching it, we'll get into the Q&A in just a second, folks. While I was watching it, I kept thinking about George Lucas a lot when I was watching it. He did America's Zoetrope with Lucas, right? Isn't that a Lucas thing? Well, this is actually probably one of my points for later, but like, what would a movie by George Lucas in 2024 even look like? Like, what would it even be about? I kind of feel like it would look like Megalopolis, like visually, technically, but I wonder, like, what would he even want to make a movie? I don't know. I guess not really, but
Francis and George were the founders of Zoetrope.
So this was like a weird simulcast event at 8:30 Eastern. So I have, you know, Letterboxd coworkers, disclaimer, work for Letterboxd on the West Coast that had to go to a 5:30 screening for this.
Which would have been a dream.
Yeah, it would have been.
God.
So there was a Q&A that I thought was going to take place after the movie.
Yeah, me too.
And the Q&A with Coppola, Robert De Niro, Bobby De Niro, and Spike Lee started at like, you know, 8:40 live simulcast in your theater, IMAX. And that went on for like 40 minutes before the movie even started. So our presentation didn't even start really until like 9:30, 9:20 or something.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our theater had internet issues with that stream. So it was cutting in and out. We barely saw the Q&A. It was kind of bad experience. And I was actually wondering, like, oh my God, the movie isn't simulcast, is it? Like, is the movie going to be this bad?
Oh God.
And they were
Holy
playing
cow.
like kind of like loud music before the Q&A even started, which was clipping in our theater.
Understatement.
I thought I was going deaf listening to this music. It was bad news.
I went to my phone and had to download a decibel app to see when my ears are going to start bleeding. I mean, we're pushing 90, upper 90s decibels in this theater for just the soundtrack alone that they're blaring in this theater.
It was too loud. Like, I know I'm old and I complain about audio, but it was too loud.
No, this was too loud.
Yeah.
This was permanent damage to your hearing.
Never mind. Just go ahead. What are you going to say?
Those are the transitions that I leave in for Proto. When Proto quits on a transition, I love those. Just a reminder, we'll get in the movie in just a second. The Q&A. Proto, what did you think of the Q&A pre-movie?
Yeah, so you said it was cutting out. Mine was perfect. Like,
yeah, mine was perfect.
Yeah, I heard everything. I will say, like, sitting down and seeing these three guys up on stage, I feel like I'm getting emotional saying it now. But I started tearing up just like seeing these three guys. It felt like I felt like really privileged that like I'm alive right now, getting to see like these masters, like, and the fact that they're there on stage, like talking about their craft, was like really cool. So like I've never been to a screening where it had like a panel. Like, I know people go to festivals and stuff and they do this kind of thing, but like for me, this is like a new thing. Like, I haven't seen something like this before, and just seeing, like, knowing that it was, you know, live and they were doing it right then. It was just really cool that it was like, wow, here's Francis sitting down talking about these movies. As for the actual discussion, I felt like it was kind of like a pretty big fumble in terms of like the questions that were asked and like the moderation of it. It was kind of like a disaster because they were just kind of like rambling on. Like Robert De Niro and Spike Lee didn't really, it sounded like they just rolled out of bed. Like they were not ready or had no idea like what was even going on here. But Francis had like some great, I kind of wish it was just like Francis, like just let Francis talk for a half hour would have been much better. Just like, just throw him a question, but it was still cool to hear.
Francis could have probably just taken one question and talked for 30 minutes on an answer. Yeah. It was insane to hear him just ramble and not even like, it wasn't even bad. Like I could sit here and listen to him talk about The Godfather for easily an hour. I mean, it was incredible. When the moderator asked De Niro about the future of cinema,
oh my God,
and he went with vote against the Republicans, F Donald Trump. I'm like, Bobby.
It's like he misheard the question. It's like he thought, what do you think of the future of America? Bobby
that's what
De Niro.
He thought he heard. Bobby,
it's the
please.
future of cinema, Bob. He just went hard. Oh my God, it was amazing.
Especially like considering the context, like we're sitting down to watch Megalopolis and like how I think to me, like how thoughtful and unwilling Francis is in really like pigeonholing any of his ideas into those. Like you can make a lot of easy connections, but even after that, even after Spike and De Niro are like, go out and vote, we have to defeat Trump, Francis still did not like take the bait with that. And he still like kept it like, our future is up to us. Like we decide these things. So I was actually really impressed that someone of his age would still like, after hearing that, his friend sitting there would not comment on that. Like he never took it. And he was just like, he stayed on point. So that was kind of impressive.
That poor moderator, he couldn't steer a ship in a bathtub.
I mean, after the De Niro one, he's like, I think we're getting told we have to wrap up. I think we're running out of time. And honestly, like the connection was so bad. I was like, thank God, just start the freaking movie. Like I want to see the movie at this point.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, Proto, you're right. Like Spike Lee, Robert De Niro, and Francis Ford Coppola, like sitting next to each other. I mean, three of the most influential filmmakers ever, like to live. Like the work that they've produced and have been involved with over the years. I mean, it's pretty staggering.
Yeah, you think of De Niro, it's like De Niro was around making movies 20 years before I was born, and then like all my life, he's just like
still doing.
He's bigger than anything. Yeah, I mean, we just watched last year a movie with him, so it's wild.
Let's see. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into this movie. Usually, when we're watching movies at home, we jot down some notes. Top 3 points. We'll rotate around. Have some dialogue about what stood out to us. But to be honest, I was not expecting to do an episode until the two of these bozos suggested it. And so I just kind of frantically wrote down some things this morning that we can talk about. So why don't we start with Danny? What's at the top of your list for this viewing for Megalopolis?
I think the top of my list, and what I was most worried about for this film, I think being his own kind of funding, and I didn't look into who was doing either the green screen or the CG or the After Effects kind of portion of this. I was worried about the visuals of this film and if it was gonna just suck. And I think they're not great, but also there was something like theatrical, like Broadway, like sets kind of feeling. Like I felt like I was watching either a play or a performance that was more geared towards, I don't know, like not like one camera, but it just felt like very theatrical in a Broadway scenario. And I felt like a lot of the CG effects were actually pretty good. I didn't really hate on visually as much as I thought I would in this film. There were some questionable things, but for the most part, I thought this movie looked fantastic.
It did look good. He used a lot of, I don't know if this was kind of just like green screen trickery, but like the bokeh on like the camera. I mean, it was everywhere. Every background was like, just out of focus. so many close-ups
Right.
on the main characters, obviously maybe, for technical reasons. But I think even Proto, your review mentioned that it felt like a stage play. It doesn't feel like a typical mainstream movie. It just feels like something different. And I don't really know how to articulate that what it felt like. It felt like almost like an art project, movie, stage play. I don't know. It's very odd to me, and I can't quite place it.
I think the two movies that it reminded me of, it reminded me of Romeo and Juliet from Baz Luhrmann.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Kind of like
Baz.
that over the top, colorful. All the characters are so cartoony. But then it also reminded me of Tim Burton's Batman. Like it felt like we were in like a different version of Gotham City, maybe like Gotham 100 years from now. I kept thinking of Gotham City and just like the Gothic architecture. Well, in this, like the Roman architecture, but mixed with like the modern themes. And then you even have like the cameras that have the old light bulb flashing that feels like from the 30s. So there's like so many different elements that are mixed together. But then even like you're saying, like the stage play, like there's that scene where it looks like they're on top of a skyscraper and there's like a clock on the ground, but then there's like these beams that are hanging. That looked like reminded me of the scene from Singing in the Rain, where they're like on the set, like that dreamlike sequence. There were so many moments that felt like a dream sequence, but it's like they're not dreaming. It's just part of the movie. So yeah, it's such like a mixture of all those elements that really creates like this dreamlike feel for the whole movie.
Can you imagine Baz Luhrmann's Batman movie?
Right.
I actually thought about Luhrmann while watching this. I thought of Romeo and Juliet as well, because some of the dialogue, like when the movie first starts, when Caesar speaks, I'm like, oh shit, is the whole movie going to be like this? Like I wasn't ready for this. But it was like, I was wondering to myself, like this does feel like a Luhrmann production. Like I wonder what it would look like if Luhrmann had directed it. But yeah, the visuals, some pretty bonkers visuals, and it never really looked bad. There was like, I referenced one scene where they're driving through what looked like Times Square, and it was raining when she was following him in his car, and it's like pouring rain on the windshield. But it looked like they filmed it during the day and they darkened it, which I literally just made fun of. I think like last episode or the episode before. And no one is wearing an umbrella or a jacket. It's like they filmed it in the 80-degree temperature outside and it's pouring rain in the car. It was just like such a strange juxtaposition. Like maybe let's film it at night or something when there's not 100 people outside. But yeah, there's just the visuals. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. Because wasn't the early buzz about this that it was going to be like all green screen too? Or did I dream that? Like it was primarily...
it pretty much was, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so many scenes just were them walking in front of green screens, or it was a room that was just draped with cloth hanging everywhere, or a lot of like, I don't know, tomfoolery, like a lot of trickery that they were doing. It was pretty good. I really liked it. And I loved the scene when Caesar, it's like all the clans are on the scaffolding above the model of Megalopolis or whatever they want to call their city. I loved that scene. I just wanted to see that scene in person.
Yeah, there was a scene early on where Julia is like getting a ride back from the party and she stops and she sees Caesar and he's like demolishing a building. And I was like, oh God, this looks like Dome. This looks like the Disney Dome here. What is going on? That was kind of just like jarring, just the beginning of this movie of like combining like everybody's in like Roman regalia, but then they're like hopping into an SUV. It was just like really bizarre to start. It like took a little bit to get my footing, but I thought like the Colosseum scene looked like amazing. Like I thought that whole set was so cool. Yeah. Like the dinner table there with the whole cast and the lighting in that. Like, yeah, there was so much in this that I just ate up and loved. What did you guys think of the like those weird abstract moments, like the dreamlike things where like it would be like an eye in the corner and then like him off in the distance, like walking through like pillars and stuff. There were so many weird like moments like that.
Some of them felt like homages to older movies that I just had never seen. Like his like respecting movies from like the 30s or the 40s or something. I really did like his drug scene Like it almost felt like there was one moment where the first time you go to the table and he's like walking by his mother, the camera tilts like I'm watching an episode of Adam West in the Batman TV show.
Yeah.
And then when he's like freaking out on the drugs and he's like moving sideways, it's like a torso up shot. And then there's like other versions of him behind him freaking out. I thought that was pretty well done too.
There was just so many interesting moments that I was really shocked at. When it goes, I think it's towards the end, and it's all of a sudden just a triptych of like,
oh yeah,
3 different scenes happening, and it lasted for a while. I was like, man, this is what this really felt like to me was I'm going to an art museum for the day, and I'm going to walk by, and every time I turn, it's a new piece made by someone else. I'm going to love it or hate it, but it's also going to make me like, how did they make that? How did they do that? Mm-hmm. Let's go to another room and see this other gallery of art. And it's like, he just like it felt like all over the place, but somehow cohesive. I don't really know how to explain it, but it was for me, it was just like walking through an art museum watching this film.
Yeah. Proto, top of your list?
I think the top of my list, I really enjoyed how relevant this felt to our time now. And how many things, there's like so many parallels in this movie. And I don't think it's like a 1-to-1. There seems like, I mean, you could talk to 10 different people and get like 10 different ways of construing it. Like there's obviously like a lot of political stuff that you can glean from this. And I think it would be fascinating because you could talk to people who are on like the extreme sides of both and get like a completely different interpretation of all these things. Like I'm just waiting for like when Elon Musk sees this and like who he thinks he is in this movie, you know?
Oh, he thinks he's Caesar. You know he thinks he's Caesar.
So like that's so interesting. And then like but it's like more complicated than that too, because even like someone like the character of Caesar himself is like, he's the protagonist. He's definitely a flawed character, but it's like he's seeking to build like this utopia that you would think everyone would want. And like, this is the good thing, right? Like we should be rooting for this. He's going to dismantle what like the billionaires hold on the money and like the mayors who control the power. But then also like the fact that like Caesar, like the literal name of Caesar is like the first emperor of Rome. Like he is the one who like becomes an emperor eventually. So like that doesn't line up properly with what he's doing in this movie. It's like, it feels almost like it would be, part 2, he would become the villain or something. So I thought that was interesting. And there's like a lot of things that are played in that way where they're like, they can mean one thing, but then they're presented in another way. Another one that I love was just the character of Vesta, like this celebrity pop star who is a virgin, but then like it comes out that she's not. And like, I mean, the scene of her, like her next album, it was like totally like Miley Cyrus, like, going bad. Like I loved all that stuff. I thought it was like hilarious. It was like so in your face and on the nose in a lot of ways. But then it was also, I thought, pretty thought-provoking and like subtle in the way that it could be, depending from your perspective, you could construe so many different things from it.
Were they auctioning off her virginity?
I have no idea where that money was going.
What was that money for?
Yeah,
No
I have
clue.
no idea. I just assumed like Crassus would get it. Like people didn't know like if you donated, but it like went into his coffers.
I thought you were going to say Crassus was going to get her virginity. Like that's what he's getting. I also thought that like with the themes of the movie about like, working together for the future of humanity, I feel like the casting spoke to that as well. Like, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but you could also read into like the casting of the Jon Voight or Shia LaBeouf, these much maligned real life people today. They're like so toxic that, people would like, I'm not going to see a movie they're in. But like
right.
Francis is almost like operating at a higher level than that, at least in his like attempts at kind of displaying or conveying a message that like you need to look beyond this kind of stuff if we're going to move forward, like this kind of petty opinion. There's like bigger things at play here. And honestly, like as I get older, I think about that stuff a lot. Not to like talk about like the canceling of stuff, but like there's so much stuff that we spend time on complaining about or like being upset about, but like, is it actually going to help us at all? Or like, is this going to get us across the finish line that is life? Like, I don't know. There's just so much, not that I am making a statement on like either of these two people, like people can do repulsive things, etc. But at least in my view, Francis is like trying to say like, we need to come together at some point and figure this out. Otherwise, there's not going to be anything left. So in terms of like the casting, I feel like he almost like on purpose or otherwise was also kind of making a statement on that as well. I mean, because these people are like, they're not getting cast in a lot of things, or the stuff they're like Voight's getting cast in is a certain kind of movie.
Left Behind 4.
Yes. He replaced Nicolas Cage in Left Behind 4.
Well, that really nails it too, because you might have missed it in the Q&A, but Francis literally said that. He said, I casted these guys because they're considered like outcasts.
Oh.
You know, I wanted them in here to show that, you know, we're all one. Like he kept saying this, like, we're all one family. We're all one people. And like what we're doing here, the things that I want to talk about, it transcends all of this. Like these foibles and these quibbles that we have about what's going on right now, like in 100 years, they won't matter, but bigger things will. And we need to be able to look past those things to build something better. And I mean, he literally, like he did it in this movie too. I mean, it's very meta, just like casting in that way. But also, I mean, I thought it was incredible.
I love that tyrant he went on after Spike tried to make the joke about Haitians and eating cats and dogs or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's when he went into the whole, we're one family.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Francis,
call me. How about Aubrey Plaza in this movie? Was this her greatest role in history, Aubrey? My God.
Punching my crotch.
Aubrey Plaza, great in this. Dustin Hoffman, I don't know what did they cut out a whole like storyline with Dustin Hoffman because he's like gonna go take care of Shia LaBeouf's character and then he's dead an hour later, like something fell on him and they're at a monument for him. It just felt like there's something else in this movie that did not make the final cut.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Oh, so that monument was for him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they showed kind of like a flashback for 2 seconds of, marble towers falling on him and while they're talking about him. So it's like left to like maybe Shia murdered him or had his goons murder him. I don't know.
I don't think I've seen a lot of Aubrey. I don't think I've seen her perform like this before. This is like a performance that really felt like a Broadway performance. In your face, over the top, screaming for the people in the back row so they can hear you. Like her performance felt like huge, like larger than life in this film. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like she outshined Adam in this performing in this film. She was crazy.
There's like I kind of think like everyone outshined Adam because I didn't like Adam in this movie. I didn't like Caesar that much. I kept waiting to be kind of endeared by Caesar, but I just felt like there was nothing to his character. Maybe that was on purpose. I don't know. But on my viewing, like his breakfast with her to start the movie where they're kind of having that interplay, I was like, there's nothing cooking here. I'm not getting anything from Adam. I also like didn't feel like the internal strife from Caesar. I don't know. Me personally, I felt like I got nothing from the Caesar character. And that's not necessarily something on Adam because he was acting his little heart out. But the writing itself, I don't know. The writing in the movie just feels like so lofty and timeless to the point where I just couldn't connect with it for the most part. Like that was just like every time Adam spoke, it was like, what's that scene at post-surgery? He's like just mumbling creation. And then he looks at one of them and he's like, destruction. And it's like, I just couldn't vibe with it. And I understand what he was going for in those scenes. Like he's speaking about bigger themes, but I don't know, just as like a lead character, didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, I felt like it was. Yeah, it felt like all the dialogue and everything was like secondary to the broad strokes of the story. I read a review earlier where someone was mentioning that is that like how like the there isn't much going on in terms of like the plot. Like I mean, there's like a story there, but it doesn't go too far after you're introduced to it. It's more about like these themes and like the things that are revolving around what you're seeing on the screen almost. And I kind of agree with just like his character. I don't think I've ever really loved like a performance from Adam Driver.
Last Jedi.
Maybe Rise of Skywalker.
Oh God!
But yeah,
not engaging.
I don't
use the chapters, folks.
White Noise, I guess, was good, but yeah, he comes off like such like a straight man and like pretty dry. I think.
What about Marriage Story? You guys have seen Marriage Story?
Yeah,
House of
That was
Gooch.
just a heavy story.
Silence. The Last
House
Duel.
of Gooch.
No, I haven't seen
Patterson.
Good, yeah.
Didn't you rate Patterson highly? Someone did.
Oh, he was great in Last Duel, actually. All right, I take it back. I love Adam Driver.
A part of the writing too, which I found really interesting. Well, there's two things. One, I didn't realize how funny this film was going to be. There was plenty of funny moments, but there was someone sitting next to me who I'm pretty sure laughed at every line of dialogue in this film.
God.
They were laughing the entire time. And I'm sitting there like, oh, I'm missing the joke. And then there's like scenes where I know it's not funny and they're laughing. I'm like, what is going on right now? Like, then the audience is laughing at random. I'm like, this is like either hitting people in so many different ways that everyone's laughing at something different. Like when Aubrey Plaza's character catches the arrow to the chest at the end, after he says he has a boner under his, the boner is the bow and arrow.
Classic
Like,
Voight.
like what am I watching right now, Francis? You are cooking. But when she gets in the arrow, the theater erupted in laughter when she gets shot dead. And I'm like, I don't know what's so funny about this. Not that I was like, this is horrific. God, I can't believe she's dead. But then the other thing I'm thinking of is and we're going to bring up George again. But when you think about episode 1, was there ever anyone in this film to say, hey, Francis, let's try this again? That's how I felt like with episode 1. It's like, hey, George, let's take a second look at this. Let's look at the script one more time, George. Or like, Francis.
For the first time.
Yes, can someone look at this for the second time, please, Francis? Like, there's some lines of dialogue like I'm like, I could have written that better, and I don't write anything.
There was
so many of it. I was just like thinking about him and George. Like, no one is here to tell them no.
Was
like,
George's writing partner?
Can we Photoshop Lucas on set of Megalopolis with like a piece of paper in his hand?
George is rewriting Francis's lines. Jesus Christ.
There was, I mean,
it's so funny to me.
I did laugh at one scene towards the end because I felt like it was like the whole experience just felt like so ridiculous to me in that moment.
Yeah.
Like I was chuckling. But there was one scene where I got like agitated. It was when Giancarlo was talking to Schwartzman and he comes in with news about like the nuclear satellite.
Oh my God.
That scene was awful. Like
one more take.
It's like they're talking. He's like, I have news about the nuclear satellite. Oh, what's the news? What is it? Oh, it's not going to land in so and so anymore. Oh, okay. Well, where's it going to land? It's like, are they improving this whole moment?
Yeah.
Is there any script for this moment? Because it's the worst thing I've ever seen. It was so terrible, and it made me wonder, like, what other stuff was just like, you guys try whatever you want here. Because there's a couple scenes that I felt like that happened where Driver's doing like weird things. It's like let's do a weird take at him. Like when he's standing next to his mother at the dinner table and he does that hand thing over her head, but then goes in for a kiss. Like that's one of the weird takes that I probably wouldn't have used.
See, I liked that. Like I liked all the presentation and the way they spoke. To me, it felt very much like these are characters who are almost like doing a performance, and like no one really would talk like this. And the way that they quoted a ton of Shakespeare and like, I mean, the Marcus Aurelius quotes and all that stuff. Like, and who else knows what else they were quoting? Like, I'm sure there's a ton of other stuff.
Joker.
But to that, like, it felt like very to me, that felt like it fit the characters and it fit the scene and it stayed consistent throughout the movie. But I can see how, it felt off.
I think it kind of feels off a bit because it's not like fully accepting of, like when you watch Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet,
You're all in.
Balls deep into Shakespeare and that performance and that language and the script. But this feels like it's like, you bring up that nuclear conversation scene where it feels like they just did it live and kind of forgot what they were supposed to say next, but just kept going. But then you go to like the drug scenes where it's like Adam's spazzing out and it's really incredibly shot and he's doing these weird things and all the weird things are so sparsely throughout this film that it's like not fully like this incredibly weird, quirky movie. It just has like moments of quirkiness that like isn't enough to like push it over the edge for me.
I can't wait for Riverside AI to suggest an episode title that's Balls Deep with Shakespeare.
Jump to the chapter, folks.
Let's see, whose turn is that? It might be Danny's turn for another note.
I would like the score of this film. I thought it was really good. I thought it had that kind of epic. It also like skewed a little jazzy at some points, and then it came back to very modern. I mean, we had a club scene. I enjoyed it outside of the beginning moment of this theater experience where we were sitting in the soundtrack making our ears bleed. When it was fully set to film, I enjoyed the score a lot.
Yeah, same. I really liked the music. As the movie went on too, I feel like it got even better. Like the way the music progressed over time. Who was the composer? Let me see if I can find out here. Osvaldo Golejov and Grace Vanderval are the composers listed on Letterboxd for this movie. It's just the same composer for his latter work, Twixt, Tetro, Youth Without Youth. So they've worked together for quite a bit of time. Proto?
I guess just another actor. Shia LaBeouf, I loved him in this too. I thought he was just wild.
You're canceled.
I mean, I think it's a great casting for like this character of like, a billionaire's son, deplorable, slimy, looking for ways to oust his father. And then mixing it with like what you can imagine of like the Roman upper class at the time of what we knew about their culture of like
debauchery,
the debauchery that he conveys and shows in this. I loved him. I mean, the scene of him in Aubrey Plaza where she basically assaults him, I guess, willing assault, was wild as well. That felt like I don't know, like a Wolf of Wall Street scene or something. I don't know, crazy
homage.
Yeah, definitely an homage there. But yeah, I enjoyed his performance, but I really enjoyed, I think, everyone's performance in this. I just thought it seemed like everybody was having the time of their life making this.
Yeah, I liked Shia in this as well. What was with his eyebrows? What happened to them? Was that a Roman thing?
Did they shave him off and then draw him back on?
I don't know.
I think so.
His hair, though, that mullet hair he had.
The hair was
incredible.
So gross. It was so foul.
The mullet was like, it was like, what's the stage after a mullet? Like it evolved because it was like down his back.
And it got like wider. It like poofed out over the side of his head. I mean, he was repulsive. 100%.
But then when he was dressed as, I guess in drag, if that's the correct lingo.
I have no idea.
When he dressed in drag as the, I don't know,
a sister,
another Roman, like, he dressed like his sisters. I was shocked. It was shocking.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to see some more of Shia than I wanted to see when the skirts kind of blew around.
Letting it all hang out, so to speak.
Thank God he was wearing a sequin tights as well to his dress and hair.
I should note, I mentioned Grace Vanderval, pronunciation up for debate, but she actually played Vesta. So I'm guessing that she wrote that music that she sang then, because apparently she's a singer-songwriter herself. the Vesta Virgin Money
the
character.
Virgin Girl.
Everyone's screaming at us that we don't know.
I
who
know.
this
I'm
is.
sorry. Hopefully, folks are still listening and didn't send us an angry email. I thought Voight was pretty good too. I will say, with that hair, he looked like my mom. If I put a side by side of them up together.
Sorry, Miss Slim. When she hears this,
it's just they looked very similar, and I thought the sauna scene was pretty cool. How they did an obvious let's make this look officially like Rome now. It also felt like there was some weird CGI happening on Shia's head. I don't know what was going on with his hair and body maybe. But that was pretty good. That's all I have to say about that, I think.
I'll bring up one more thing for us to talk about, since I think we may be the only ones to get to experience this, is the live human man performance aspect of this film that we got. Mm-hmm. So apparently, I don't know if they're going to continue this aspect. So during our performance, probably 3/4 of the way through, there's a moment where Adam Driver is being interviewed by a bunch of people. But the IMAX screen goes down to a small screen, and a man, I don't know how it was set up in your theaters, but someone walked in with a microphone and stood down front of our theater, and a human man interacted with the movie as it was working. So he would ask the question, and Adam in the film would answer the question. I have never experienced something like this in a theater. It almost felt like 4DX without the 4DX experience. But I'm wondering, I guess it's just going to be a regular moment in the film, but I would be amazed if Francis kept paying theater workers to continue this bit throughout the duration of run of this film. Because I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. There's someone in the audience interacting with the film that's happening. Did the lights come on the theater for you guys too?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, the lights came up for us too. It was interesting. But I was like, this is wild. This is absolutely unhinged, Francis.
I couldn't tell. I thought that the person up there was just pretending to speak. I couldn't put it together that they were actually talking, or if they were just mouthing the words as they happened. Because mine, I think I read someone saying it was really off from what the person said to respond, Adam Driver responding. Mine wasn't like that at all. It almost felt like the guy almost forgot to get up there in time, and then kind of just pretended to speak, and then it was over.
Yeah.
Ours tripped over the mic stand, so we heard the mic on.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know if that is a factor.
Yeah, I wondered too if it was the audio coming from the movie itself and the person was just kind of playing a part, standing there only. Yeah, I can't think of anything like this ever that I've seen in a movie as well. I'm guessing they won't do it for future showings. The cut will just,
Yeah.
They just won't have someone bring a mic out. Maybe nothing really will change. Maybe the aspect ratio of that scene changes, because it shrunk down.
Yeah,
right.
On my
so
showing.
that he was standing in front of them. Maybe Alamo Draft Houses or something.
Someone tripping over a
houses.
plate of nachos, getting to that microphone.
They don't see the guy kneeling, delivering food.
I also didn't really get it necessarily, in terms of what else the movie was doing. Why do this? It felt more of an idea, an idea that was in Francis's brain 40 years ago, and he was just I just have to do this. I just have to I want to have this crazy thing that no one's ever done before, because
no one told him no.
George in the writing room, George Lucas being
George, high-fiving.
What if we have a real person ask a question during a press conference? Francis, what do you think about that? My George has gotten nerdy over the years.
You're getting
we've been
good.
doing this
good.
show. My final note is, there's another big theme I felt was also just Francis getting older, and him Caesar's character not being able to control time. There's a lot of scenes when he's on the girders, I feel like he was having these discussions about being unable to control time. It just felt the act of aging and things changing over time, and him losing the ability to kind of almost feel in control of what was going to happen in his life. That was probably the most overt theme that was in the movie for me, but I honestly liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought that, when he like touched hands with her and they stopped time together, I thought that was pretty adorable. The scenes, but I mean, that's not to say that their entire relationship worked at all for me in the movie. I felt like it was not great, but I'm in like this weird state. Like, so this is the kind of the reason I didn't rate it. Like, I honestly was kind of miserable watching this in the theater. Like, I was bored. I might have even sat too close for the IMAX screening. Like, I was kind of like darting around because this was like a weird ticketed event. And when you're press, you get a ticket. And we were like we were like the D row in IMAX. And I would probably never sit that close in IMAX. I mean, the screen is freaking huge. So I don't know, like on top of everything being zoomed in on like a face angle, like I was already super close. So I was just like looking at eyelashes, I felt like. So, but like I said, like the relationship stuff between the two of them didn't work for me. Giancarlo as like an evil mayor who allegedly had something to do with a cover up on his wife's death, that whole nothing burger of a plot didn't work for me. I mean, everything really didn't work for me except the visuals. However, the journey of Coppola to finally make art without needing money from someone else is like crazy inspiring. Like for anyone that makes anything, I'm not talking about like content creation. I'm talking about like you make something to be consumed by a large audience. And to a lesser extent, we do that. But like, I feel like I have just like this crazy respect for him to do it his own way, like we talked about at the top of the show, and he did. So that's like also like why I didn't want to rate it, because I just like felt like, I don't know, do I want to rate something that is like this powerful and impactful because I just was kind of bored watching it? I don't know. That's just like my internal grapple. So I didn't like it, but I respect it. And that's just kind of like my closing thoughts. I put in my review that like maybe like a 1 or 2 star viewing experience in the theater, but I don't know. It just feels like that does almost like a disservice in how I view the project, at least for where I am right now.
I mean, I respect that. When you look at it like art, as someone who's done art for my whole career and done it in high school, there were things in high school I thought were pretentious and I hated it in the art world that now I've come to just absolutely love. Finer art. So I feel like this is one of those things where you may not love it right now. It may change. You may watch it again for whatever reason in the future and see it in a different angle, or something's changed in you as a person. That's just how art is. You may not love it. You may respect the artist. No stars. Who gives a shit?
Right.
I mean, I'm at 2 stars because I'm in the same boat. I'm not like in love with this, but I gave it a heart because I didn't have a bad time. I don't think I was bored. It didn't hook me. It didn't connect. I didn't connect with anything. There was no some sort of deep meaning in this film that I know was there. I'm not connecting with it as a person, but like you said, him being able to create whatever he wanted with his own money, not hurting anyone else, allegedly, is admirable.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to talk about was the last thing. So I mentioned in my review, there's this moment where he does like an Entertainment Tonight spoof that I just like couldn't believe that was in this movie. Because I'm watching this and like, unless you lived like through the early 2000s, I don't know if you would like understand what this is. And the fact that he would like pull that, and of all the things you could reference, I mean, the guy's 80 years old, so he has a lifetime of things to reference. And like he takes that and puts it in the movie. I mean, I thought it was hilarious. It felt like I was like transported back in time to watching TV of this. And even like the fact that there was like, I don't know, just TV. And I guess you can see it's like, the one thing I noticed is like there was like no internet in this movie. Like there was no websites, there was no social media, there was no scrolling, there was no talk of any of that. Which might be more of like a Coppola thing. It's just like not in his life as much. It's like TV. But I thought that was interesting. in terms of like this movie, yeah, I'm at 4 stars for this. But I am curious as to how it will age, which I don't know. Like, I think Apocalypse Now, it's like a masterpiece that'll hold up for time. Like, it speaks to the Vietnam War in a very profound way that I think it'll always be relevant to that. Like, will this stay relevant in a way? I don't know. I feel like it's too early to tell. Like, I'm interested to see it again. I think one thing that I'm really interested in is like it's like I almost want to take Jenna to see this, because I'm curious as to what she would think. And it's, I kind of want to I want my kids to see this eventually too, as crazy as that might sound, because I think the big ideas in this are like really profound, especially like he says early on, there shows this drawing that Adam Driver has, and it's like a tree of humanity. And then it shows civilization as like a branch of humanity, and like as a branch that could be cut off one day. And that like big idea that like as a civilization that's continuing to evolve, and like civilization was an involvement of like humanity, is like, could we outgrow that at some point? Like, could we go in a different direction? That's like a thought that like I haven't really considered. I think you think of just like civilization as a part of just the world. Like, this is always the way it will be. But to like rethink those ideas at like such a grand scale, I think that is important. Like, I think those questions, like he said, like you need to be asking the questions and start the conversation. I think those are like are truly like, in all seriousness, like important for the future. So the fact that he would be willing to do that, especially at his age, because honestly, most of the older people I know, they're not thinking this way. Okay. Right. So like, I found it really refreshing to have like, hear these thoughts from, a quote unquote elder, or like just person who's seen so much. So for that reason, I really appreciated the movie too.
Play us out, Slim. Play the music. Perfect way to end. My God.
I did have something else. That was a great way to end. I did have something to end.
Let's let you end it.
Sorry.
Ending part 2.
Let's let you finish this out.
No, one other thought. I just think it's fascinating to compare Lucas, Scorsese, and Coppola to see like what they produced in their late years and how vastly different they are, like visually and otherwise. In the 70s, you could say, or 80s, they're putting some similar things together. Maybe not so much Lucas, but Danny, you probably think about this all the time, but like stuff that you made 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you probably hate or maybe
I
love.
Can't look at it.
Right?
No.
Imagine if you were
I literally emailed a project out Friday, and as I was putting the file in the email, I said, I hate this. And I hit send. Like, I can't do it. I can't look at my old art.
All right. I'll close with a review that I liked from someone we heard from last week, Curtis.
Let's hear it.
Left a 5 bang on Letterboxd for Megalopolis. Curtis writes, before my grandfather died, we would gather around the table and listen to him speak. He would share stories from his youth and his time in the service and how he met my grandmother. He'd talk about philosophies that guided him and exhort each of us according to our position in life. Sometimes he would ramble or be cringe or lose his train of thought, and other times I was so transfixed by what he had to say that I couldn't shift my eyes away from him. But regardless, he was our elder and he was someone worth spending time with. And in the end, it didn't really matter what was said. It was just good to be together with him as a family. That's what this movie reminded me of. So, thank you, Curtis. Great review. I mean, he didn't do it for us. He just wrote a review. So I'm the one saying thank you.
Thanks for us.
Thank you for writing that specifically for this special bonus episode of 70mm. Hopefully people had fun. Hopefully people are doing some thinking maybe that they wouldn't otherwise have done after seeing.
Well, people see this film.
Hopefully you see the film. Maybe you don't even care and you're just listening to us instead, but more power to you.
If you don't see it, you're going to bankrupt Coppola. So
yeah,
it'd be your fault.
The winery's not going to last forever, folks. Okay?
No.
It's not going to last forever, or the resorts, for that matter. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. 70mm is a tape deck production featuring original artwork provided by Danny Haas. Spiritual guidance and V'ger, the robot who loves movies, provided by Proto. Producer at large Dale _A. and music composed by Cinematrix. Prints and other merch are available on 70mmpod.com. This episode was mixed, edited, and produced by me, Slim. Support our Patreon for access to our VHS Village Discord to talk movies with new friends, access to our exclusive episodes in the 70mm vault, discounts on merch, uncut episodes, and a physical membership card mailed to you. To check out other Tape Deck podcasts, find the link in the episode notes. And if you'd like to support our friends at Letterboxd and upgrade to Pro or Patron status, you can do so with a 20% off discount using the links on 70mmpod.com. Goodbye.
This is a Tape Deck podcast.